In today's episode of Today in World War II, March 2nd, the Soviets make another attempt to cross the icy bay of Viipuri, but are repulsed bloodily by the Finns. The U.S. Congress finally passed the Lend Lease Act, which is going to be good news for American allies. The American destroyer Pillsbury was shelled and sunk by the Japanese, and I got something to say about that name change, the name choice. The Soviet Third Army was destroyed near Kharkov after Kharkov had been recaptured just a few weeks previously. A German ace got taken out by two P-47 Thunderbolts. Oof, that's a bad result for them. Heinrich Himmler signed Aktion K into effect, which condemned escaped POWs to concentration camps. And finally, elements of the U.S. Ninth Army reaches the Rhine River, and the Third Army captures another city in Germany. Let's get started. Okay, so on today's date, like I said, the Soviets are attempting to establish a beachhead west of the city of Viipuri. Viipuri is a provincial city. It's the main city on the Karelian Isthmus, and I've said in previous modules that if they take Viipuri, then the roads are wide open to go all through the settled part of Finland. So the Finns are desperate. They need to hold off the Soviets as long as they can. The Soviets were taking advantage of the weather, the frozen bay of Viipuri, and so they sent a task force to try to establish a beachhead a little bit east of Viipuri, but they were repulsed by the Finns and they took a lot of heavy casualties. But as we've seen in the Soviet Union's history and now in Russia's war in Ukraine, they don't care about taking large amounts of casualties. They're just going to, if they throw 20 unsuccessful head-on bloody meat assaults onto an enemy line, they're just going to get ready for the 21st until the 50th and so on and so forth. So, but the only positive result for the Soviets was that they were able to take a coastal battery on the island of Tuparansaari. And that that was at least a consolation prize for them, but they still haven't taken Viipuri yet. And you should never give up the prize. It's not Viipuri, but it's the prize of knowing you did a good deed by subscribing to my channel. Like I say this every single time. I'm sure you're just as tired of it as I am, but I'm morally obligated to say, please subscribe to my channel because it helps the engagement. The YouTube algorithm loves engagement and it'll show my content to more people. Ipso facto, more people will see my content. Okay, thank you. On March 2nd, 1941, United States Congress passed the Lend Lease Act. Now, this authorized the president to lend war supplies to nations that we consider were vital to American history. This is not history, security. Obviously, Great Britain is one of those. The Soviet Union is one of those because they are actively fighting the war right now. Well, the Soviet Union wasn't yet, but they will be in a few months. Okay. So this was a workaround. This allowed FDR to get material to people, to these nations that are our allies without giving it away, right? We're lending it to them with the idea that they will pay us back eventually. And that was a big deal because, there's a lot of Republican isolationists in Congress, and they were not happy, kind of like what it is with Ukraine right now, if you think about it, even though it was completely in our interest to keep the British afloat and in the war. And think about, we could not have invaded Normandy if we didn't have England, which was an unsinkable aircraft carrier from which to launch our bases, to launch our bomber attacks, and so on and so forth. But some people have very narrow-minded views of things. They don't understand foreign policy history. And so they think, why are we sending all that money over there? Well, there's a reason why we do. Okay. There's also a reason why you need to like this video. Now, I hope that I've earned your like through my content and my delivery of the content. But, even if it didn't, be a nice guy, be a nice person. Okay. Just click on the thumbs up and you make everybody happy. You get good karma for you and your children if you have children. And, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but yeah, just like the thing, please. I appreciate it. Okay, on March 2nd, 1942, the American destroyer Pillsbury was shelled and sunk west of Christmas Island by the Japanese cruisers Atago and Takao. I don't know what the procedure was in the naming of this destroyer, but I would probably have issues with naming a vessel of war a destroyer, who attacks other destroyers, escorts carriers, escorts merchant vessels, and all, a warship, Pillsbury. Okay. I mean, why did they stop there? Why didn't they go and just say Doughboy, the Pillsbury Doughboy? I mean, it's not exactly wartime karma there that you're trying to put out there. I mean, to me, I'm thinking to myself, if I'm a sailor on the Pillsbury, I'm a little nervous because, the Pillsbury Doughboy is not exactly a vessel that's going to put fear in the Japanese hearts. Now, I'm not making fun of the dead, and I'm very sorry that they were the sailors were sunk, lost their lives. Some of them maybe gone into captivity. There's no record that I could find. But it's just like the British had a destroyer called the Dainty, and it was also sunk. So, let's have some real man names, like Killer or something like that. Okay. On March 2nd, 1943, the Soviet Third Tank Army was destroyed near Kharkov, Ukraine. Ironically, Kharkov had been recaptured by the Soviets just 2 weeks prior. And you think to yourself, well, what happened? Why would they lose so much ground and lose a major city like that? Well, there was a certain general at this time who was commanding this front. His name was von Manstein. And he was the one, if you remember in previous episodes, he was the one that was the driving force to convincing Hitler to have the Germans attack through the Ardennes Forest in 1940, because nobody was expecting them to go through the Ardennes. They were expecting a repeat of World War I, where they would sweep through Belgium and Holland and Belgium, a right hook. And that's where all the defenses were. So it was a strategic genius move on his part. So, you had von Manstein, who was pushing for that and was successful. Hitler, after lots of reservations, went ahead with that. Then you had Guderian, who was the who was the author and the driving force behind the whole Blitzkrieg philosophy and attack. And then you had, a commander of a general of a division like Rommel, who would be the one driving all of that on the field. So, boy, you talk about the Holy Trinity. Well, I wouldn't say holy having to do with Nazis, but you know what I'm saying. So, in this case, von Manstein had come in and pushed back the Soviets by a lot of miles, and he retook Kharkov. I think Kharkov rechanged hands like three times in a certain period of time. So we're still in 1943. It's March, so we know that the last major battle where the Soviet Union and Germany fought on relatively equal grounds would be coming up in Kursk in the summer of 43. And then on March 2nd, 1944, a German Luftwaffe ace, Egon Meyer, who had 102 victories, well, he was shot down and killed. He was flying a Focke-Wulf 190, but he was bounced by a couple of P-47s while he was attacking the B-17 bomber stream. This was near Sedan, France. A couple of ironic things about this, and cruelly ironic, I would say, is on the one hand, he had just received a major medal from the Luftwaffe, from the German High Command. It was the swords to his Knight's Cross, which is a big deal over there. 102 victories is nothing to shake his stick at. But I would think that he probably felt a little bit ashamed maybe or disappointed if he had time to think that before he was killed, was that he was shot down by P-47s, because the Germans did not have much respect for the P-47. And listen, it could not dogfight with a Focke-Wulf 190, which at the time, was still a top of the line aircraft. But what the P-47s did have was they were heavily armored, they were heavily gunned, and they could dive. They couldn't dogfight very well, but they could dive. They could dive and swoop up again, and that's how they shot down a lot of German fighters. So if you play to your strength, it's just like in the Pacific, the F4F Wildcat was no match for the Zero. It couldn't dogfight with it, but with the right tactics, it could and did shoot down a lot of Japanese Zeros, even though it was, for all intents and purposes, inferior to it. Okay. And then on March 2nd, 1944, Heinrich Himmler, great humanitarian of the year, signed Action K. And this was in response to the Great Escape. When the Nazis and Himmler in general, Hitler, they had it with these escaping POWs. And so they came out and said, here's the deal. Action K means that if you are a prisoner of war and you escape, you're not going to get sent back to the POW camp and put in the cooler for 30 days to cool your heels and think about your sins of dare trying to escape from, as a POW, even though it was recognized by the Geneva Convention that every officer had a duty to try to escape. That was part of their oath as an officer. Now these Nazis are saying, well, we don't care about honor. Obviously, by this time we know that. So if you escape, you're going to be sent to Mauthausen concentration camp in Austria, and you will face execution immediately upon arrival, and your remains will be destroyed in the camp crematorium. I know I don't have proof of this. History does not have proof of this, but there was the last successful escape from Colditz Castle was by a Canadian soldier, and everybody thought in the castle that he had made a home run, that he had made it to back to Allied lines because he was not returned, but nothing. There was never any record of him. He just disappeared. So most likely, this is what happened. Either he was sent to concentration camp, or they just put a bullet in his ear somewhere, somewhere, in a creek bed or something. And finally, on March 2nd, 1945, elements of the Ninth Army reached the Rhine River at Neuss, Germany, and Patton, of course, he's got to get the headlines too. His Third Army reached Trier in Germany, and we're still in the process of cleaning out the Rhineland. Because remember, German geography here. You have Belgium, Luxembourg, and France. Those are the borders with Rhineland, the Rhineland. Once you invade Germany, there you've got like Cologne. Well, I think Cologne's on the Rhine, but getting towards the Rhine River, that's a German province. So they had to clear all of that out first, and then the last defense barrier to the invasion of most of Germany is the Rhine River, and we're going to see how that develops here very, very quickly about how the Western Allies jump the Rhine River and move into the industrial heart of Germany. Well, I'm going to end this video now. I want to thank you for watching it, and I'll see you tomorrow.